Welcome into the inaugural stream of Book Club hosted by Ask Xander, It's Flemma, and The Sleep Easy, featuring amazing members of the Retnu crew. If you want to join our growing community on Discord, feel free to click the invite down below. And thanks for following the channel here on twitch.tv/Hes Retnu. Today for the premiere episode of Book Club, Ask Xander, It's Flemma, and The Sleep Easy will be leading conversation around The Silence of Our Friends, a New York Times bestseller by Mark Long, Jim Demonakos, and Nate Powell. To set the scene as the civil rights struggles heats up in Texas, two families, one white, one black, find common ground. The semi-autobiography is set in 1967 Texas against the backdrop of the fight for civil rights. A white family from a notoriously racist neighborhood in the suburbs and a black family from its poorest ward across Houston's color line, overcoming humiliation, degradation, and violence to win the freedom of 5 black college students unjustly charged with the murder of a policeman. Published in 2012, The Silence of Our Friends is an important entry in the body of civil rights literature. And without further ado, it is my pleasure to pass the mic over to Ask Xander, It's Flemma, and The Sleep Easy. Guys, are you out there?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Well, I just wanted to dig into it. So the first thing I wanted to point out, of course, the content is very heavy, but the name of the book actually comes after a Martin Luther King Jr. quote, and so I'll just read that out real quick. It is, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And since the book is named that, you can kind of guess what happens within the book. So one of the things that I did kind of want to jump into immediately is, I love this book. I love how it's written. There are some, words in there that I don't use, but within the context of the book, which is a story that starts in 1968, Vietnam War is going on, civil rights is happening. I think that in context, it works very well. And I'm not going to lie, there were plenty of times where I was tearing up about things that happened in there. So I guess that's kind of like an overarching statement that I'll make, and I'll kick it off to whoever wants to talk next.
Yeah, so I guess I'll make an overarching statement as well. One thing I think that was really interesting about The Silence of Our Friends is this had to be a graphic novel. If they would have just written this as a regular book, you would have missed so much context. Like the imagery, the art gives the words and the feeling so much more weight, and it's so much more relatable. One thing that really stuck out with me personally was whenever the kids are being made fun of for their hair, right? And not really made fun of per se, but they're made to feel really uncomfortable because everyone wants to feel it. They want to touch their skin. And it's very uncomfortable, and it really captures 1968, being African American in 1968, when the girl just walks up and is just like, "I have to feel you," and they're like, "What?" And it's just like, it just shows, just because the Jim Crow South, quote unquote, was over, it really wasn't, right? It was still alive and it was still thriving, and there were still a lot of ignorant individuals who just didn't know. And I think The Silence of Our Friends being a graphic novel with imagery, some of it is kind of tough to swallow, but if they would have wrote this any other way, I think you would have missed a lot of context.
I absolutely agree, especially with that, because it wasn't just the white family and the black family. It also is the African American family doing the same thing. Talking about how, well, your hair is like this. Well, your hair is like this. It just might not have worked out. And specifically, what Xander's talking about is there is in one of the families there is someone who is blind, so they can't see. So that's the reason why she wants to kind of, that's how she gets to know people, is to kind of touch them. She gets to know them by that,
Right.
I made my overarching statement. I did want to thank Hes for this. You have an incredible community. We appreciate you. And really, this couldn't have been done without our I guess, producer, Hes. And if he didn't get a chance to read the book, that's fine. But if he has anything to say, please jump on in and, let me know.
Yep. Thanks to Sleepies. I'm just super excited that you guys are on and super pumped for this inaugural stream of book club. You guys have been weekly getting together in the Discord channel and, talking about books. And it's just, it was like one of those things that I feel like everybody could benefit from hearing you guys do this on stream. So it's super grateful and thankful that you guys took time out of your day to do this today. So hats off.
Absolutely. And we chose this because it was nice and short. It is a little bit heavier, but we didn't want to be in the middle of our other read, which is Manufacturing Consent. We're about chapter 4. So having the first inaugural book club at twitch.tv/Hes Retnu didn't quite make sense. So we wanted to be able to get, and hopefully be able to get all of it in the time frame that we are allotted. So again, thank you, Hes. Clement, do you have any first thoughts that you want to get out before we really kind of dig into some of this?
I do. I do, and I think one of the biggest things that stood out to me, the main takeaway was the panel, I guess is what you call it. Whenever I forget, I'm bad with the names, but whenever I want to say Luke, not Luke. Whenever the wife is asking about them hosting the white family over, right? And she says, "Do you want to be friends with this man, or do you want to use this man?" And whenever it has that one section of him kind of being like, I don't know, I guess both. For me, that hit me probably the hardest. I mean, there's a lot of big moments, a lot of emotional resonance throughout it. But that moment for me, I was like, what a complicated but beautiful thing to think about. Something that I don't really, I haven't really seen that in words on paper or in front of me in that way, where it's like that person, there's an advantage, right, tactically, to have your voice be out there by using someone who has more privilege than you, right? But at the same time, seeing that person for who they are as a person, and knowing that there's personal gain that isn't just social or something that can help change the world. For me, that panel, that moment really stood out to me, and kind of spoke to that idea of yes, there's so much more that can be done to help when it comes to attacking the societal problems that we're dealing with. And that is very much almost like a business transaction in a way, right? You're like, I can do this in a way that is just very simple. You're not getting this attention. There's not a spotlight on you. Your voice is not being heard. I can just simply use my voice to lift your voice up. And it's just that simple. It's not difficult. But at the same time, there's a personal relationship, a personal bond that can be so much more beautiful and strong because of the fact that you're, out there fighting for me. But at the same time, we have this personal relationship. I don't know if that really makes sense or resonates, but it just, for me, it struck a chord.
Yeah, so I kind of want to jump on that real quick because I did like that as well. And one of the things that one of the key things that you said is, I'm trying to reframe it. It's not just about the privilege that the man had, but the platform as well. Like, he's a journalist. He works for the media. So having that access, especially in 1968, is huge, because what a lot of people don't realize is, we live in a world of instant everything. Like instant messaging, instant everything. And that didn't exist. And one of the things that I really enjoyed seeing, and again, with it being a graphic novel, it just was able to really capture, how long ago this was, but also how recent it was. And the way we share information has drastically changed in comparison to 1968 and right now. And tying it back to Manufacturing Consent, if you look at the way whenever they're listening to the TV or they're listening to the news or anything like that, when it gives context about that specific stuff, you see the manufacturing of consent. You see voices not being heard. You see them recognizing that the media is not either investigating on certain crimes that are shown throughout the book, or they're just not talking about it at all. So to have somebody in the media on your side is huge. That's all I wanted to say on that.
Yeah, I'll jump in really quick, and then I'll try to move on to a different subject matter within the book. I think that Flemma hit the nail on the head with complicated but beautiful. I think that is hands down the best way to describe this graphic novel as a whole. It is. Like, even the art within it, like, it deals with complicated issues. It puts you right in the story. And Xander's right. Like, if this was a different medium, I don't know if it would work as well, because this is a semi-autobiographical book. Semi only because, and Flim and I mentioned this earlier before we jumped on to Twitch, is that really the only difference is the court scene. So this event actually happened at this campus. Kwame Ture, then called Stokely Carmichael, was going to be speaking at this university. And chaos broke out, and there ended up being hundreds of African Americans arrested. 5 of them were kept in jail, and 1 was charged. That charge ended up being dropped. The way that the book handles this is they have all 5, including one of the main characters, in there, and they have to do kind of like a To Kill a Mockingbird type of, climax at the end. They're in the courtroom, and even though that specific thing didn't happen, there are lots of moving things that bring you back to why the story is called The Silence of Our Friends, right? Because the whole reason why Martin Luther King Jr. used that is because he saw that silence was an action in itself, right? And it was a betrayal. So one of the main characters, Larry, thought that he was being betrayed by his friend, and he actually, at the end of the day, wasn't, because what Jack ended up doing was he was there for him in a way that couldn't have been expressed another way. I'll just say some of the things that I do want to mention is that we're still dealing with some of these things today. They mentioned unionization. We just had a whole bunch of union drives exploding throughout the country, right? I loved, and Hes, you would like this, I don't know if you can get your hands on a copy, but the way that music was portrayed in the book was so great. It kind of was woven, sometimes interwoven through different panels, but it really evoked, especially when you know the songs that they're singing. There's a church song as well that it is moving. And then the other thing that I did want to...
It was like a music video in a sense. It felt like a music video. It was very, very cool.
Yeah. It was really cool. And the other thing that I have in my notes, there's lots of others, but the other thing that I'll just kind of touch on is in the book it mentions that the police officers outnumber the protesters to a certain amount, and we just had something like that happen with the climate protests. There was a place where there were 4 protesters and almost the entire police force was out, telling people to go home, and it was an illegal get-together when it was just 4 scientists who had handcuffed themselves to a building. So it really, no one was hurt, no one was in the way, sort of a thing. And what happens in the book and what happened in real life is these students were sitting in the middle of the street, and that was it. It was a peaceful protest. So with those things being said, we're still dealing with, this book was written 10 years ago, but the story happened in 1968. So those are kind of some of the things that I'll feed back to you guys to see if anyone else wants to kind of chat about that. And I do have other things in my notes that we can talk about.
Absolutely. I saw Cyrenese jump in too, and I don't know if Cyrenese has anything they want to say vocally, but if they do, feel free. Like, because I know I don't want it to just, we always say that we don't always want it to just be us 3 gabbing around.
I'll also say feel free to type it into the Twitch chat. Go for that. So if anyone wants to say anything there, we'll do our best to highlight it. No worries.
Then, sorry guys, I forgot to ask. I'm driving and have you connected to my vehicle. How does it sound? Does it sound good or not?
Perfect. Sounds perfect. I wouldn't have known if you wouldn't have told me.
Okay, all right. Well, that's interesting. Because everyone sounds like I. Anyway, anytime I'm on the phone in the car, that's not what people say. But awesome. Glad that we're having that. Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, yeah, I definitely agree, and that's why I read that this was. Again, I've said it a million times, but the fact that it was graphic and it did, it's so hard to unpack this because there's a lot to unpack with everything they show. I mean, it really is a very complicated story, and sometimes I felt like you were like caught in between. It's like you could observe everything, but at the same time, you didn't really you knew what the right responses were, you knew what the right answers were, but you were like, it just did a good, job of keeping you involved and getting you emotionally invested. I got very emotionally invested, to be honest with you. But yeah, I would agree with you. It's very shocking to me that some of the same, I guess, some people would consider complaints that you hear from minority communities in 2022 are the same things that people were protesting for in 1968. It's very enlightening to see, yes, we've made progress, we have made change, but we still have a ways to go, right? I will not go to the extreme and say that it's still the same as in 1968, that just objectively is not true, but at the same time, we still have a long way to go. There were multiple times where this book made me feel uncomfortable because the way they were setting up scenarios and the characters were being made to feel very uncomfortable. And the fact that on top of it, just like you said, this is a semi-autobiographical book in the sense of everything that was experienced, especially from the childhood stuff, that actually happened. And some of the things that the main characters had to witness or even just had to handle, is not stuff that even I had to deal with. And, I grew up in a very disadvantaged community as well, but still some of the things I saw were things I never, like a Flemicet or earlier, I would have never thought twice about.
Yeah, it's a wonderful book. There's more where that came from. I try not to put all of my radical beliefs onto you, but there's a couple more where that came from as far as graphic novels that deal with some of this stuff. So one of the things that I do want to say is I love how things are portrayed. One of the things that was interesting to me is that even amongst friends, let's see, what was his name? He said it to Larry. Jack said to Larry, he said something kind of racist. And he was like, oh, that's I'm sorry, that's something my mom always said, and so even amongst friends, some of that racism came to light then, and I'm sure it happens to this day. The other thing that I thought was really interesting is because this takes place in 1968 and the Vietnam War was going on, there are times, or I don't know if anyone else picked up on it, where it makes the police officers look like members of the military, especially in the scenes where the protest and the riot is happening. I happened to catch that, and I was like, that's not a SWAT uniform. That very clearly is a military uniform. And it just kind of shows how things were. I wasn't alive in 1968, and all I have are some pictures, but what pictures we do have are, people getting hosed for peaceful protest and stuff like that. But yeah, it's very, very moving, as we could tell from the trailer.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you on that. It made it feel so much like you're saying that comparison with the war and with what was currently going on in the story. It made it feel like it was another form of war happening on our own territory, right? And that's the kind of the way. It's still to a certain degree is that way, right? But even especially then, people were fighting for their lives, literally fighting for their lives. And at the same time, you're also fighting all of those social norms that were set up by the time that they were living in. It starts off right with them going ding dong ditching, right? But they're using obviously a far worse term to describe it. And those kids are so casual about it but the parents are horrified. And it wasn't a situation where the parents taught those kids to say that, but the society around them, it was so commonplace to just call it that, right? That they were just casually saying it. And I think that, or no, wait. Yeah, I'm right. Aren't I? I know the parents were horrified whenever they heard about it or saw it. Heard them say it.
I know that. Yes, one of them did. There was whenever it was a neighboring kid that first says that turn of phrase, and then later, it's that same kid or someone else within the neighborhood that just uses the N-word specifically is what we're talking about. Just uses it to describe people and not a silly thing that kids like to do, which is ding dong ditching. So yeah, it's very, again, in context it works. It is very jarring, I guess I would say, when it is used in the graphic novel, but it's very tastefully done. No one's it's not intentionally to just for the sake of just using it, right?
Yeah, I can use it because it makes sense for the story, so let me use it 100 times. No, I'm going to use it enough that way it's, because I think it would be inaccurate or disingenuous to not involve how that stuff was happening, right? And that's very in your face in a way that does make you uncomfortable, but it's meant to, right? Because if you're not uncomfortable, if it is, too glossy or too, what I'm trying to say, too easy to swallow, the message I don't think would have resonated near as much. Right?
Exactly. Well, and that's kind of the point of our book club, is we don't want to read things that we are in our echo chambers or make us feel good, right? We've read things on different sides of an aisle and all sorts of that. And that's what I want to continue to do is, have stuff. It doesn't have to be radical, but things that kind of make us think, right? We're bookworms, but hopefully also we can be mega minds, right? Because we got all this learning going on.
Absolutely. And this was a great reminder of just how much, standing by and thinking, well, I'm a good person because I'm aware of these things. I feel good. I feel like I'm doing something because at least I know that I have this privilege, or at least I know that people are still struggling. But it's one thing to know.
I have a friend that is X, right?
Right. Exactly. So. Right. And that kind of thing, you're not making it as any sort of significant impact on the world around you when you think those things. You're just kind of assuaging your own inner person. I apologize. I'm also taking in groceries at the same time as I'm talking to you guys. That's why I'm kind of out of breath right now. But
no worries.
Timing has never been my strong suit with this stuff. But yeah, I love that we do that with this book club, and I love this was one of the first times. I mean, we've read some good ones. We've read some books that were really challenging, but this for me was one of the most I felt the most call to action from reading this one. You know what I mean? Reading Manufacturing Consent, you're seeing a lot of these structural issues. You're seeing how, we're being told a certain thing and how the propaganda machine is making us feel about certain things, or not feel a certain way about certain things, or just flat out ignoring others, or what have you. But this book was one where I was like, man, I know that I can do more. I know that there are things in my life where I can speak up for my friends or try to use the platform that I have, whatever it may be, to try to amplify what's being said, or on the other hand, right, shut down people that I know that are close to me. I don't know about you guys, but I know I've got family, and I've got a lot of family that are still so backward about how they think about these things. They do think about how, well, Martin Luther King said his piece, and we marched. That's enough, right? That everybody's treated exactly the same. It's not the case, and there are so many times where you want to have conversations with them, but it's difficult. Right? And so you kind of ignore it, or you kind of let it go on the back burner, and you kind of neglect it for a while. And reading a book like this and seeing that struggle and seeing it graphically shown to you, kind of like what Xander was saying, is a good reminder to be like, hey, this stuff is still worth fighting for, even in just conversations at the dinner table, casually with your parents or your cousins or your aunts or your uncles. Because if we're not having those conversations on a regular basis, if we're not speaking up, then it's just going to stay the same. We're just going to remain stagnant, right? And the worst part is we're going to, everybody's going to think that everything's solved, everything's fixed, everything's better, other than the ones that are suffering.
Yeah, and if nothing else, this reminds people that Martin Luther King at least has two quotes, right? The one about the content of your character and the one about Silence of Friends. So,
Right.
so
Right,
if we
being
leave with
proactive.
nothing
Say
else, I
something.
hope that everyone that read this and everyone who's watching right now can now know two quotes from Martin Luther King Jr.
Heck yeah, I love that.
The other thing that I do want to say is I'm not someone to like require anyone to do anything, but as Xander mentioned, this would be great if it was a required reading, especially in a time where books are being banned. And I quite honestly am waiting for the shoe to drop on this one. There's also a couple of other ones where I'm just kind of waiting to see how it goes. I hope that it's never a time to where books are banned, and this being one of them. Also, I have seen a resurgence, which makes me so excited, of banned book clubs, and we certainly can do that. As I'll put stuff in the next poll if we want to, but having banned book clubs specifically are wonderful. Just a reminder while I'm on this horse, not terribly high. But at one point, Captain Underpants was banned. So it kind of runs the gamut as far as banned books. It doesn't have to be One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It could be something as as silly as a character who is not the president of the school, whatever administrator the Captain Underpants character is, that has underwear on his head. We can't look at people with underwear on their head. Do that would be Doug. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to say those things. Xander, I know you got to head off pretty soon. Did you have anything that you wanted to say before you shove off?
Yeah, I had to leave and I had to rejoin because I lost audio. No, everything you guys said, I agree with 100%. I did want to make a note. I would like to do another graphic novel for sure. That was really fun. I kind of enjoyed that a lot more than just reading a traditional book. It kind of got me into graphics again, to be honest with you.
We can certainly do that. The thing that I did like about this, for those who don't attend book club regularly, and this is our first inaugural on twitch.tv/Hes Retnu. We do a poll every time we're going to do a book, and we did a special one for this one, and they were all graphic novels because we wanted something that could be short enough and accessible enough. This one in particular was a little bit harder for our Canadian friends, and some people don't have easy access to a library to get. But yes, we used graphic novels this time. So I'm all for putting more graphic novels in. And as someone who is a lifelong reader, especially of this particular medium, I'll be all down to suggest, but I'm also open to suggestion. I know that Flemma and I think, Flemma, did you also read Sam Wilson, Captain America? That's one of my favorite runs. So that one's good.
Absolutely love Sam Wilson, Captain America. That would be a great run to read too.
That one's good. I know
really
Xander's read the
new banned book club. Just as a side note, just to bring that back.
Yeah, how about this? We'll get into the habit of always having on the poll at least one book that was banned somewhere at some point. I'll try to be better about that.
I love that. Love that. Oh, I love that.
But yeah, this one was specifically short. So there are graphic novels that aren't short. Like V for Vendetta isn't short. The Watchmen isn't short. So there's no way I'd try to cram, reading an entire graphic novel by Alan Moore in 1 week. But this one was short enough that we could actually do it. So I'm totally open to that. And hopefully we'll be able to do that more and more.
Absolutely. I think it's a great, wonderful idea. And anybody wants to be involved with it. I think we definitely want more voices. And again, one thing about this that I think that obviously stands out is this is for the most part, three white boys talking about this book. There's a lot of perspective here that can be gained from having more diverse voices, more people that are coming from different perspectives, right? That I think that we desperately need. So any time that there's an ability to have more people of diverse mindsets be involved is wonderful, a wonderful thing, never a bad thing.
Yes, absolutely for it. Well, I think we've kind of talked around a lot of the content that we wanted to. Hes, if you wanted to take it away, I think I'm definitely fine with it. Does anyone else have any closing or last words?
No, I mean, the only thing I would say is that, make sure that if you see yourself in a situation where you can use your voice or your platform to speak up for somebody who needs it, do the damn thing, man. Be there for them. Be their friend, because I feel like it's just really important. That's all. Yeah, that's all I had to say. Sorry, Syrians. I know you're not a white boy. Also, I apologize. I'm saying for the most part, we just continuously are like hogging up the oxygen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Syrians do tend to be in the chat, which is absolutely fine, and I appreciate them for that. So yeah, the other thing that I will say while we're on, that's still the book club call, is to remind everyone, chapter 4 of Manufacturing Consent is next week. We'll chat about that. I do, again, Xander mentioned this, and I'll just say it again. It is really cool, and I didn't do this intentionally. It's really cool to see how the previous books that we've read really kind of are shown in this graphic novel. I really liked it, not only in the form, but we went through some of these things. Even, it went back as far as woke racism. Some of the stuff that was content in that book was in this. Some of the stuff in capitalist realism, it was in this book. Some of the stuff in Manufacturing Consent, it was all kind of intertwined into how this story was told. And I really like that. And I hope that if we walk away with a couple of things, that is one of them. The other is that read banned books, and also knowing that second MLK quote. And if there's a third thing, it's to know that there's more than 2 MLK quotes. So that's all I have to say. I'm excited to get with you next week to talk about things, but that's all I really have to say about it. So thank you all for doing this darn thing with me, and I look forward to more and more.
Yep, been having a ton of fun. I would agree with everything that you said. Everything that we've read strategically has kind of lined up and shown itself in this graphic novel for sure. I wasn't really expecting that, but once it happened, I was like, wow, okay, these things all kind of cross together eventually. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. Look forward to doing this more. Sorry I wasn't able to participate as much as I wanted to. I had a bunch of stuff written down, but I had to leave that at home, unfortunately. Cannot read and drive, but I will give the time back to you guys. I will be hopping off, and I will see you guys next week.
Until then,
guys.
All right. Ask Xander, it's Flemma, the Sleep Easy. Thank you all for being on the book club this week and for putting this together. And the inaugural stream has been a great time. A lot of good conversations were had around the silence of our friends. So super grateful that we got to spend some time today. And Ren, thanks for being on as well. Cryptic Rocket, Jase, everyone in the chat. If you liked what you heard here today, feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. So, and if everybody wants to, we'll definitely have more of these live streams on twitch.tv/Hes Retnu in the future. I'm good to go for next week if you guys are, but that's something we'll be talking about like within the Discord community. So, and also feel free to join the Discord, links in the description down below. But until next time, appreciate you guys. Long live the book club. And once again, shout out to Ask Xander, it's Flemma, and the Sleep Easy.